Well, welcome to what we're hoping to be a great series of this podcast about how to exist in the entertainment industry.
Yeah. So you're hosting?
No. I don't think I'm hosting. Are you hosting?
No, I think we're co-hosting.
Okay, one of us has to start.
Yeah, well, I was going to say my name, and you're going to say your name. And look at the camera.
Okay.
All right.
Let's start there.
I'm Joseph DeBenedictis.
And I'm Ross A. Citrullo.
And we're doing this podcast so we don't have to go home and get a real job.
Exactly.
That's right. And we're doing it to try to tell you about our pursuit of the dreams we've had since being a kid, being young, trying to get into the entertainment industry.
That's right. This whole podcast is really based on the idea of the dream, living the dream, and trying not to have to go home and get a real job.
If you don't quit, you might make it. And if you quit, you definitely won't.
People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it.
I'm never going to be my hero. That's just fine with me because that keeps me with somebody to keep on chasing.
Everybody's trying not to go home.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something.
When you've got something which you know is individual to yourself, just encourage that, nurture it.
You got a dream, you got to protect it. You want something, go get it.
Us, we're mid-career, sort of. We're kind of halfway broken in a way, but we both have these big dreams and big goals.
Aspirations, really.
For our careers.
Yeah.
I know mine has been have a TV show.
Right.
Whether I'm producing it, I'm in it, I don't have to be in it. I think really it's more about I want to be the creative juice behind the show. It's my show, co-created. I'm working on it as one of the main people whose show it is.
Right. And whereas yours in the video industry or the TV industry, mine's in the music side. I play guitar and I'm a music producer and I want to make a hit, whether that means I've written a hit as a band or that I've produced a hit as a producer.
Yeah.
That's my dream, a giant hit worldwide.
Yeah. And so I want to dig into knowing how you and maybe other people in the future will we get on as guests of how the little stories that they've
in pursuit of their dream. How did they get there?
How do they get there and whatever stage they're at? Because I think even if you're at a level of such success, you think there's always still more you're aspiring to.
Exactly. Every time you hit a milestone, it's if you're the type of person that would be in the industry, driven and going for it, that wouldn't stop you.
Right.
You'd go, I got that milestone. Great. Now what?
That's it.
Whereas a lot of people go, shouldn't you be happy with that milestone?
Yeah,
we're not.
That's just not because I think in the creative industry, you always have you have an idea that you always
what's the next thing?
What's the next thing that fuels you? You're passionate about.
Yeah.
Is seeing that thing exist.
But I think the key is really, how did we get here? What did we do in the pursuit of our dream? And have we gotten there?
And
yet,
still trying
right?
as we're still trying to do it.
And really, what the podcast does is it gives hope to people who may have just graduated from a career college or some sort of school where they're learning how to do this, or whether they've been doing it for a long time and they have still not broken through like they thought they would have.
Yeah.
This is a great podcast so that you would know that you're not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of kids I've heard who they want to grow up to be YouTubers now. Like that's a big thing. And like the amount of work it takes to do that, people don't understand.
Totally. But it also might be the opposite too, where with YouTube, it's almost like you can get lucky without having to do that much, and all of a sudden you're there, right?
True.
So it gives you the hope to know that maybe the next idea is that idea. You just stumbled upon it,
Right.
So our job really here is to sort of tell you the stories of how we got there, some of the things that we've done, and hilarious anecdotes that happen along the way.
Yeah.
But also to sort of show you that, like, hey, we're still doing it. We're out there doing it just like you are.
Doing it. We found a way to make money while doing it as well, which is
doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt.
That's not
it's
a bad
the only
thing.
reason you can do this full time, and the ways of which we've been able to find how to get paid. Maybe it's not the exact thing we want to do every time. It's adjacent to our dreams.
Totally.
And it's helping fuel it, and we're finding different ways to get to this.
Yeah. Well, in many ways, it's not how you draw it up. It's how it ends up being drawn up, right? So, like, I know that for me, I had a plan of how I wanted to do it, and that plan is, while in there, is not exactly the way it was drawn up, but it's almost cooler.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Joe? What's your story?
Well, I've been making videos my whole life. As a kid, was always filming with my dad's old JVC camera. Making videos and stuff. And I was making comedy skits even as a kid, and then putting them on eventually with the internet and putting them on there before YouTube. So you you still have to download some of the clips that are on my old website for some reason still exists.
Crazy.
And you were in some of them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right, you were in some of them, and I eventually went to school for it. That's where we met, at school.
That's right.
It's in university for radio and television arts.
Yeah.
You went to audio side, specialized. I went to more TV video production side. Out of school, I got a job with the Canadian Football League doing their videos, a lot of highlight reels, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I started the first ever like original series, documentary series for the CFL teams, for the league itself. I hired you to work on some of them with me as a audio.
Way back.
Yeah. Then from there, I got a job with the Buffalo Bills and Sabres doing their content, their documentaries behind the scenes. I've done every type of video for a sports team, in arena, TV ads, intermission videos, social media videos, hype videos. It's like I did that for about 8 years, right?
You won some awards too.
We won some awards. Then I hired you to do some of the work with me. We both
Yeah.
some of the awards. It's there's a lot of stories within all that. And here's the thing: at the time of doing all that stuff, going through school, through the CFL, through the Sabres and Bills, I was always making videos at work and on the side. At the side of making videos for the full time, I was making my own videos, my own stuff at the side of my desk at home at night, all the time. Whether it was skits, whether it was magic, it was a lot of. I was coming up with a lot of creating a lot of pilot episodes for show ideas. I wasn't even in most of them. It was just about other people.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fun, and I would try to sell that as an idea to a production company or a network.
And now you're doing comedy too.
Doing stand up. I quit. So I eventually worked enough to at the side, built up my social media enough that I have a following. I can get sponsored posts now, so that's fueling the cash flow. And I quit my full time to do my own content full time.
That's right.
And that's what I'm doing. I've added stand-up comedy. Again, part of it I can film that, get clips, put it on the internet as well.
You're climbing the ladder towards the dream.
Towards the dream of like finding different backdoors of like different ways to like get known and like get the reps in.
Exactly.
And understand how everything works and be better at it, creating creatively and marketing essentially of how to make somebody want to watch your videos.
Right.
And trying to get the TV show on air. And it's the little goals that I've set for myself or like aspired to that keep you going.
Exactly.
Like, it's not just like it's this or it's failure.
Yeah.
It's like these little things that I've had success in that are fun and exciting and what drives me.
Exactly.
So that's my story. Your story.
Well, mine's sort of different in that I'm in the music side, but the aspirations are the same.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is still, navigate the industry in a way that is successful so you can still survive it, right? Yeah. And, I've played guitar since I was 5 years old. That's always been my first passion, as I'm sure you know. And, was able to turn that into a music-making career that wasn't just instrument-based, which I think is sort of the big, pivot point in my career where I sort of realized I probably couldn't do this as a full-time thing just playing guitar. And I realized, well, I'm also passionate about the recording side of it. And this was pretty early on, maybe grade 9 or so. And I switched into that gear and trying to also produce the bands I was working in, but also look for production stuff outside of it and learn the recording industry. That's when we went to school. I met you there. I branched off into the audio side, met some partners in the school. We started a studio. We worked pretty rigorously.
You never worked for anybody else?
Never worked for anyone else.
You always did your own business.
Did my own business and started the studio and getting clients and just sort of honed the craft while also playing in bands on the side, honing my craft as a recording engineer and producer, branching out eventually into production. And of course, the post-production side, which is actually where I started originally when I first started doing post-production audio for videos.
Audio, yeah.
When I first started in the industry, I actually interned for Sound Dogs Toronto and Post City Sound. And that was my first sort of kick at the, real pro audio side of it.
Right.
And then they realized I was a music guy and not as much in the post world. So they encouraged me to do the music side in addition to the post stuff, right? So I went in that way. And then, obviously we've had the success with the Emmy Awards. We had a re-record mixing thing, but, music has always been the main passion.
Right. So, but the other things adjacent to that music, like, it's still in the same industry of music, audio.
Of course.
Right?
Audio and music.
But you
it's
can
all
take those
world.
jobs that aren't necessarily exactly.
And that's just part of the world that we live in, is that the music is the audio is the umbrella that encapsulates music and it encapsulates post-production and all that.
Right.
And it also, covers the production side of it as an artist.
Yeah.
Right. And so like my band, the Commoners, we've been trying to live that dream and making hits and making records in the Southern rock world.
Right.
And we're doing the global tours, and we're, you know, focusing on trying to be a rock band like they were in the 70s all the way through the 90s. And that's really the hardest thing to do in adjacent to running a successful studio.
Yeah,
doing both of those.
Finding the time, right? Because you're finding success. You're like, we're literally in your studio, your newest, biggest, beautiful studio in Toronto.
Yeah.
Recording this here, and so you've made it in the industry to make it successful in the fact that you can live off of what you're doing in the industry.
Exactly.
And so you also are touring in your own band.
That's right.
In the UK, a lot of it, and you just released a new song on Spotify and all over all the platforms, and so you're doing all these things, but you're still like, you're not where you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that you're not where you want to be. It's exactly
where you want to be.
It's exactly where you want to be, but
it's
it's not the ultimate goal yet. Which I think really until you die,
you may not.
You probably won't get the goal, because even after you do the first goal, which is get the hit,
now what?
You probably want another one, and another one,
That's
right? So like you're going to do that until you can't do that anymore, right?
That's
you know,
it.
and that's just because
it's
that's how we're driven.
it's part of the process. You have to love some of the process.
Exactly. Well, and you do. You're always in love with the process. I mean, that's part of what got me into this, was being a guitar player that wanted to also learn how to make the rest of the band sound good. So you have to learn how to record drums and how to record vocals properly. Even though your passion is with the guitar, you still have to branch out. And that's what makes the industry so cool, is that you have one thing that gets you started, and it umbrellas out into all these other things, right?
Yeah.
And just the idea that, you know, our podcast is sort of geared at people who are in the similar situations where they've either broken in and actually have the success that they're hoping for and they're nourishing it, or they're on the outside looking in, but on the cusp of something big and still have made it as, you know, yourself, you know.
Yeah,
and I
like
think
that.
That's the big thing that I want people to take away from this podcast, is that anyone that's doing this, you're going to have to make it happen for yourself.
Right.
And when you make it happen for yourself in this industry, that's when the ceiling is sort of removed, and you can sort of pick your own success.
Yeah,
right.
But it's fueled by your own.
It's your passion. It's always your passion.
You can't. Yeah, if
Right.
you're not passionate about this, no one would ever.
No one would do it, because you look at them, especially the musician side of it.
Yeah.
As a touring band, you look at the finances coming back, and you go, well, this, unless you're U2 or it's Taylor Swift, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right.
So how would you ever make it, especially in this economy, right? It would be impossible.
impossible.
So our role here is to figure out how to make, you know, hope happen for people that are doing the same thing. The first thing we should talk about is how there isn't really a level of success that you could measure. I think that's kind of the cool thing about this industry, is that like success is so varying. Some, you know, let's say you're a musician and you're playing a bar gig every weekend, and that's your bread and butter. You're making money doing that. That's successful to that world, right? Yeah. But if you're trying to be Taylor Swift and take over the world, and anything short of that is not successful, you're not successful.
You're not going to be. And there's always somebody.
Yeah.
Who you're looking up to.
When we started, we met in school 15 years ago or so, right?
Yeah,
and when
university.
we started at that point, we were, you know, so new and trying to make and develop something into this. But like, if you look at where we were finding success 10 years ago versus where we are now finding success, they're still successful. So we're still going, hey, we just succeeded in something. We're doing something really cool. But the measure of that in terms of like the overall growth of what we want and what we could strive for is so different.
It's totally.
This studio is an example of that, right? We're filming in this beautiful space, which I wish I could take credit for building, but I didn't.
Yeah, but it's your space.
It's my space, but this is a studio that's everything you'd ever want. It's Nashville level recording. But if you look at where we were and starting out 10, 15 years ago, that studio was such a utility that made the career launch to get to the point where we are.
Yeah.
But it had so little, you know, building blocks to get there that it wasn't really a studio by this measure, you know. So everything's kind of like that. Like even in your career, right? You started doing video editing. You know, we used to do that show. The
Wee Show. A comedy on comedy skits before like YouTube existed.
Yeah.
Right. I was putting it up. You had to download the video from my crappy website.
Right.
To then be able to watch
stream it.
No.
I
So
didn't know that.
and the website still exists,
Okay.
and there's a list of skits, and eventually the links turn into downloads instead of
I see.
YouTube links.
I see. Is that right?
It's
really?
they're that old, still on there.
And you're hosting this?
Yeah, it's
You're
like,
paying for this still.
No, I'm not paying. It was like, again, it was a free site. Somehow it still
Okay.
works. I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, great. I was just probably a bill.
Tripod.com was the free host.
I'm sure there's a bill coming. But the most important thing is that if you look at that measure and then versus what you're doing now, he just showed me 10 minutes ago, showed me a video that he just shot for an astronomical amount of money that to most people go, wow, that's successful. But to you, right, or where you are right now, you just made this huge amount of money on this video.
Yeah.
And you're going, how do I make the next step? How do I do the next step?
That's almost like I don't even, like I care. I want it to be really good. But like the success of that video and like when I post it, it doesn't matter. I'm not married to the success of that video as much as I am to like a video that I just shot on my own of a stupid video skit or something that I want to do that probably is only going to get 1,200 views because that's what it is.
Well, I think it comes down to what we were talking about earlier, professionalism. As you get more experience in the industry, you learn more about what you weren't good at before. So like there's a math equation or some equation where it's like, I forget exactly what it's called, but basically when you don't know much about something, that's when you're more confident about it because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. That's so
Right?
true. And that blind confidence though does lead to some success.
It does.
Because
Yeah.
you're so naive, you just do it your own way and you find a new way to do it. And also sometimes that's better than you impress other people who are like, well, how's he can't do
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
He shouldn't be doing it that way, but somehow it's working.
Yeah, like he didn't know you couldn't do a song that way, but then you did and it worked and it's like,
Right.
oh, well, you did. You just did it. But it's like where you are in that curve not only dictates where professionalism is, but it also dictates where your level of expertise sort of lies. Because like when I started out, I was like, I can record, I can do anything. I have all these mics.
Yeah.
A mic can't make that big a difference.
Yeah.
And then you learn why it makes a difference.
Yeah, it is.
You realize, wow, I knew nothing before.
Yeah.
And then you build from that, you're 5-6 years in, you realize how far out you are.
Yeah.
And then you build up through that and you go, oh, wow, okay, I have to learn all these other things to make that first thing that I thought I already knew work.
Yeah, exactly.
You learn mic types, you learn all these different things. And then now you're at a place where you've got this color palette and you go, oh, cool, I know why I would pick such and such. And even then it's still not right.
Yeah.
And that's
it's
what's crazy.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I can equate it to, I had this experience and I didn't understand it until after I had the experience. So I play a lot of table tennis, a lot of ping pong. And I was getting really good. Like I was beating everybody at work. We had a table. I was like, I'm really good. So I'm like, I want to go to a ping pong club. And I did. And I walked in there and they basically laughed at me. And I lost for 3 months to everybody. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I knew, but I didn't know. So then I built up and I got very good.
Right.
And like I played in sanctioned tournaments. So I did the math of like, that 10,000 hours. Like what would it take me to get to a level of like, I can actually make money playing.
Right.
I did the math and it was like 20 years. I'm like, well, this is not going to.
That's a long time.
This is how what it takes.
Yeah. Well, I got two things that we can pick apart here to take us in that. Okay. So, and this is going to sound weird, but number one, okay, it sucks, but the biggest burden in life is a great potential. Okay? It's horrible that this is true, but the biggest burden is like, so you have a kid. You got 2 kids.
Yes.
I have no kids. You have 2 kids. Let's say that kid happens to have an affinity for golf.
Yeah.
Or an affinity for hockey. Okay? If you look at him, wow, this kid's got a natural ability to do this. Wow, great.
Yeah.
It would be insane for you to not nurture that.
Of course.
Put a lot of money into it, and now you're going to AHL games. You're nurturing this whole thing, and you're
traveling,
being
your
like you're a
weekends
hockey
are
dad.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a hockey
Yeah.
dad, and they're dedicating their life to it. They're not having friends. They're going and practicing, and they're doing all these things. And then for all that, for them to probably not make the NHL.
Yeah.
Right,
it's
but
true.
you have to do that because you've got this great talent. Like with music, I mean that's something that I know pretty intimately. Like you as a guitar player, you think, oh wow, I'm pretty good. I've got a lot to do. But then you go back to that curve again, and then by the time you realize how much you don't know about guitar, you're already so invested into it, and then now you have to figure out how to learn all that to get past the hump, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a burden because you have to nurture that.
You have to do it.
You have to. And it's not even just about being a kid. If you happen to on your own discover you're really good at something.
Yeah, you
and then
have
it's
to
like, well, I
decide.
should like a lot of people I know who have gone to school for something and then they realize, well, fuck, my passion was in whatever, video production or music production, whatever, and then they leave their day job, they go back to school, and as a mature student, they learn what to do. I have a lot of students like that, where
Right.
they go back to school, they learn what to do, and then they basically are restarting at like 30, maybe even 35, right?
Which is exciting too to something
Totally.
to do. I think at
Well,
the same
sure.
the thing you're getting about the kid, it's true. Like I know a lot of people who've done that. I'm sure that'll happen with my kids, which is fine. I think the parent side of it as well is like, well, it's just something for them to do. It's an activity that they're going to do. We need to keep them busy.
Right.
Like there's also the other side of it not being so burdenous. It's like we need something to do anyway.
Right, but if they were excelling in it,
right?
Yeah. If you're Tiger Woods, and you're 5 years old, you're on whatever Johnny Carson making a putt.
You try.
I mean, you're kind of like, all right, well, maybe there's something here.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's also life lessons of like them trying something very hard and understanding the work it takes and the investment and the time. So hopefully if that doesn't work out, they know how to transfer that work ethic to whatever else they want to do.
Yeah, that's right.
So you see that through, you guide them.
Totally. And I think that's totally fair, right? But
as we are to other people we mentor them.
Of course.
I have mentors, like I'm sure as you do. So it's
I have mentors who work with me to help develop me where I am, which you wouldn't be where you are without that, right? Yeah. And to me, what that is it's like it's less about like when I talk to my students, who a lot of students they either intern for me or they work for me, and when I talk to them, it's less about like, look what I've done. You need to be exactly like me, or that's it. It's not that, right?
Yeah.
Right. When you're mentoring, what it really is you're going. It's crazy, but you're saying there's so many mistakes that you could make in the whole world. There's millions and millions of ways you could screw it up, and you don't have time to make all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have all the time in the world to make every mistake. So here's all the mistakes I've made.
Learn from that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
And
you'll
then
find your own
ways to fuck up, and then tell me so I don't do it.
Right?
Like honestly, like the internships that I work with some students with is it goes from school. I teach them, they learn, and then I go from the school. They come work for me at the studio, and then we sort of at that point they either go off on there and do their own thing, or they sort of realize, hey, this actually isn't for me, and they leave. And I think it's interesting to watch. That progression, because as like your mentor, you're trying to just say, hey, look, if you're going to do it in what I'm doing, here's all the ways to not do it.
Yeah.
I've already done all these. And that's not even all the ways. This is a lot of ways that is wrong.
Yeah.
There's still 1,000 other ways you could do. So if you come across other ways, you tell me so I know what not to do, right?
Yeah. I remember learning stuff later on after high school, and there's like simple little things. And I was like, why wouldn't they say this in Comtech?
Yeah, right.
Why didn't he tell me that? So I remember going back to speak at my Comtech, like at high school, and like I mentioned like a few things that like blew my mind when I found out. I'm like, you don't know these things. You need to know these things. Like this is how this works.
Right.
This is how this works. This is cool. Right. Now you So it was just like, yeah. I guess at the same time now I realize like maybe you're just not ready for that information at that age.
Well, you're not. And I mean so in the music industry it's weird because you look at your idols, okay? And it's not necessarily my idols with all the people I'm going to name here, but like your idols are like, the Beatles and like Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix, like these people who are icons in their own right, who in like the 60s and 70s, this is what they did. And you look at them and you're like, wow, they're 19 in that photo. And you're like, wow, like they're, you're almost double their age.
Yeah.
And you're like, how the hell are they? They look like they always look older. Like I'm trying to picture myself at 19.
Yeah.
If I knew everything I know now and was at 19, I still wouldn't be where I believe they would be.
What was it then?
I think at that year, like that time frame, you did grow up faster. Genuinely, because there was so much more money in the industry flowing that way, that there was just the ability to not have to work and focus on your craft. There's a lot of bands that I know where they weren't great bands, and not to slag on anyone, but just genuinely weren't great musicians, had not developed their skills or done their 10,000 hours or whatever. And in a normal, scenario, they are, I don't want to say the word privileged either, but they weren't able to, focus on music 100% of the time. So when they get out of, sort of their smaller informative years and then they grow into what they hope is a band, they're not as developed as someone who's able to say, I don't have to have a day job. I don't need to make my rent to be able to, and I can continue to be a musician my whole life, or I can do a career or focus on something specific.
Right.
So like, I know that for me personally, if I didn't have to pay the bills and the rent, I would just play guitar all day. Right. Like that's the first passion. It always has been. Right.
But this is your place to make your rent is to work here
Exactly.
as a record producer.
It's the greatest backup plan
right,
in the world.
It's basically
right?
hand in hand with what you're doing.
And to go way back, like I remember being in high school, and again having an affinity for guitar and being like the guitar guy, and people again trying to nurture that and going, here's what you're gonna do, and then me looking into what that career path looked like, and going, oh my God, I don't think I can make it. I will try, but I don't think I can make it here. So I kind of went, well, how do I avoid being a broke musician, right? And then I looked at sort of the career paths of my idols, and probably no shock to say Jimmy Page was someone who really led a path for me in terms of the way that I play guitar and I try to listen to things in the same critical eye as like a Zeppelin kind of thing. And he was like, he was the producer of his band. Oh, okay, well maybe I could look into that, see what that was like too. And that was when I first realized that. That was about grade 9
cool.
when I realized, wow, I probably can't be a professional musician. So I should probably have a great idea as a number 2. And then I fell in love with that.
That's great.
Right. And so now you have these 2 loves that are like your life is doing both of them.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
But but back to what we were saying, that when you look at the idea of, okay, these guys in their 19 and 20s were just gifted this talent of being incredible, and then you look at the musicians now, most of the time you're not developing until your 30s almost to really break.
Yeah.
But whereas back then it was like 19, 20, now you're developing. So it's almost like we're 10 years late.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
But we're also living longer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People are living longer. There's more time there.
It's true.
And then I think just with the internet, it's so hard technology and everything, it's hard to not live in that shadow.
Yes,
right? Like
you're just always looking at who's doing better.
Right? Like there's a lot of we live in fear of child prodigies all the time. Like every musician is terrified.
Yeah.
Right? They're sitting there and they're going, all right, I can't, hopefully someone's not 5 years old and phenomenal.
But the beauty of what you do is that maybe you can record that person and like produce them.
It's a great backup.
That's the you can work with them, you can help them, they can help you.
Exactly. And it allows you to do things like this, where we can actually talk and reflect about careers.
So like I guess we should answer the question for why would somebody listen to us,
to our podcast.
What would this give them?
I think that what we're trying to do is sort of make a blueprint for hope.
Yeah.
In many ways, right? Because what happens is you graduate from something, or you leave, your steady thing to do something and pursue it, and you realize pretty quickly how hard it's going to be to do it. It doesn't really matter what it is. You're trying to be a doctor, you're trying to be a lawyer. It's the same thing. Wow, I have to how much school to do this and then do really well at it? Okay, wow, that's crazy. And what we're trying to do here with this podcast is sort of give you the realization that everyone is going through this.
Yeah.
You look at the media industry and the entertainment industry specifically, because that's what I feel like we're experts in. At least we're close. We're not idiots in it completely.
No.
So we look at the entertainment industry and we go, okay, here is a bunch of stories about how, like, wow, we almost quit there, or this wouldn't have happened if it was for this.
Yeah.
And then you look at the grand scheme of it and you go, well, we're not even really at the giant level of success that you would go,
think,
wow,
we want to be. I will share one interesting story of like my path of like things that didn't go. I didn't plan this to happen, but it happened, and it like fueled a lot of. It was great for my career. So I was working for the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo. I moved to Buffalo from Toronto. That was great. That's a whole other thing. We can get into all this stuff in the future, but I worked for the Sabres in the broadcast department, making videos, documentaries. Then the season ended. The first season I was there. Season ended. In the summer, we got called into the office, and we're with Kim Pegula. And then I believe it was the president. I don't know, the president of the Sabres, but Kim Pegula, the owner of the Pegula, she owned her and her husband owned the Sabres.
Right.
So me and basically the entire, all the video people in broadcast, all of us were editors and would hold the camera and do that stuff. So there's like 6 of us, and then there's another side of the table that was more the broadcast people, like more like in the trucks and like directing. And Kim Pegula sat at the head of the table, and she said, so we're moving you into a new company called Pegula Sports Entertainment. I remember this day vividly, and she was like, so what does this mean? It means that you're going to basically take it out. We're going to get you a new office. You're going to go to a different office. You're going to move out. You're going to be, kind of so we can get you to do more projects that aren't just Sabres related, because we own other entities. They own a record label in Nashville. Right. I worked with Kelsey Ballerini at the time, before she was a huge star, as she is now. You know, we own restaurants. So we want you to make videos for all of these entities we own. That's the idea. Of course, you're going to still be doing a lot of the stuff for the Sabres. And then they didn't tell us this, but eventually they bought the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
That was their big plan, I believe, right? And then they have that under Pergola Sports. We can work on both teams.
I see.
But I remember this, and we're like, it was...
That was recent. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And we're all, what the hell is this? Like, this is not what I just moved my whole life from Toronto to Buffalo.
How quickly into it was it?
It was after I just did one season. It was like I moved there in October. The season started in the October was 2013. 2014 May.
Yeah. So you'd only been like a half a year, right?
Yeah, I moved, and they're like, "Oh, we're changing everything."
Right.
You don't know what this is going to be.
Right.
And I was like, "What the?" It was scary. Mm-hmm. And I remember I remember vividly her saying, not that this was a concern or if it knew. It's like, "Oh, and don't worry. Like if you're gonna move, but if we win a championship, you'll still get a ring." Because the staff everyone gets a ring if you win a Stanley Cup.
Right.
Right. So I was like, okay.
So then you have two. Could be the Bills or the Sabres.
So but we didn't know we had the Bills yet.
Oh, I see.
Anyways, that was an interesting story of like something, and eventually it turned out to be amazing.
Yeah.
Right. We got to work on the Bills. We worked on a bunch more stuff that I never would have worked on if they didn't do this.
Right. But you could have conceivable quit at that moment.
Crossed my mind.
Right.
Of course. It's like, I don't know if this is scary. It's not what I signed up for.
Well, that's interesting. There's a moment in time when you sort of were left with a decision: should I do this or should I stay or should I go?
Right. Yeah.
Should I go home or not?
That's
right?
it. Go home.
Right?
It's so true.
Right.
So true.
And in your case, literally home back to Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. Like I had a moment like that with when we had my old studio. We had a flood.
Oh.
And we lost the entire console and the computer and we had all these Avid interfaces that were all connected to the Pro Tools system in the tower, 2 Mac Pro towers powering the system and the whole console.
Everything.
And I will say, insurance is a hell of a thing when it comes to recording studios. It's very important to have that, and if you don't have a decent insurance system, this should be a good warning that it is worth the price of admission, even though it is very expensive. It's very important to have that with all your gear. And they were able to come through eventually. And, you very easily could have taken that money and, bought a house and gotten a different job. Or you could take that console and fucking use it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
We don't want to buy a house. You don't want to go home.
I don't want to go home. That's right. What's the point of buying a house? You're not going to go home. But that's exactly it, right? Like you could have in that moment pivoted your life. And instead you stayed true to the passion, right?
Yeah.
And use this piece of audio gear to now make music that's going to get you to the dream that you want.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the moment where you actually look at it and you go, I guess this is meant for me, right?
Yeah.
So we did it. And that's where we are right now. And, it's hard sometimes, but it's rewarding, but it's not always the horrible financial mess that it sounds like it could be.
Yeah.
So, that all that to say that, as long as you're not actually in a position where you're living or dying by this thing.
Yeah.
It's really a choice to continue to keep going. And that's what we're trying to do, is trying to give people the encouragement that it's okay to keep going, even if maybe you're not there yet.
Yeah.
It's not even that it's failure, but setbacks.
Yes, yeah.
Right? A failure is, someone told me once that the term fail is actually just an acronym. First attempt in learning. Okay? I didn't invent that. Someone told me that. Right? Your first attempt in learning. So if you fail, it's not that you're saying,
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Right? I've learned how to make great records because I've made bad records.
Yeah. What's the term for like 100th attempt at failure?
I don't know.
100th attempt at learning.
They don't have that.
Yeah.
I think that's when you go home. Yeah. No, they haven't.
Don't go home.
They haven't coined that yet. I think the problem with the entertainment industry is if you go into that world, especially the music side of it, but if you go into that world thinking that your goal is to do it to make money, that's when you have a problem.
That's gonna be a problem.
And I don't think that it's because you can't make money. I think it's because that the ways to make money
not what people think
is not exactly. Yeah, it comes mostly from like external sources, right? Like you can make way more money, doing a podcast than you could doing a song, which is crazy.
Right.
Like a song seems like the universal way to make money, right?
In the same way, people ask me all the time, like, oh, so you're a full-time YouTuber, TikToker, and social creator, whatever. Like, oh, do you make money when people watch your video? Like, does YouTube pay you, or does like TikTok pay you?
Right.
And when I say, well, no, and they're like, well, how do you make money?
Right.
And it's like, well, you build the audience, and then you essentially get brand deals because people pay to come and get in front of your audience.
Right.
That's like, and people who don't know how that was, like, oh, okay. It's just like if somebody didn't know how to record a song, if they would be like, what do you mean you record them all separately?
Right. But that's the beauty of the industry, though, is that what you're talking about is actually the way it's always been. Because I remember, I feel like we talked about this a long time ago, just, casual conversation, sort of saying, well, so how are you making your money? It's like brand deals. And then you kind of think of me like, oh, that seems kind of like you're selling out a little bit. And then you look back at it and you're like, well, hold on a second. From the beginning of time.
That's exactly it.
Okay, here's my song on the radio. How am I hearing this on the radio? Because someone's paying the radio station to play their ad to allow this content to be consumed for free.
Right. And that goes, yeah.
So it's like, that's like the early days of the 40s, the 30s and 40s of radio broadcast.
That's exactly
That's
it.
the first time that happened, and it was immediately monetized.
Right.
So now you look at it now and you go, oh, well, I'm going to get a brand sponsorship, and that's going to diminish everything that I've ever worked for, my integrity.
I think,
but it's not, because that's what it is.
It's
right?
exactly what it is. And if people most audience, it's for me, it's like they're usually happy. You're like, okay, hey, he's doing well. Like, I like him. I follow this person. Like, he's getting his due.
Right.
But then some people who don't understand, like, well, I can't do this for you and provide the service for you to be entertained by my videos if I don't do some of these.
Of course.
But I will find the best entertaining way to do this for you.
Here's a point, which is this is a great segue, really, because this is my next point I wanted to talk about. Okay, integrity is expensive.
Oh yeah.
Because if
you can be very poor if you want to keep all your integrity.
But even just at the grassroots of it, I think that if you're a musician and you're not going to allow an A&R person to direct you to go a certain way because of your own integrity, that will end up being expensive if it's the wrong call, because
you'll lose money.
You'll lose the money, you'll lose the brand sponsorships. Same within your world. If you're saying, hey, I don't want to switch a brand deal up because I'm scared of people thinking I'm selling out,
yes,
then you will lose the money for that.
Yeah, and
right?
I think the answer then is, and again, I feel like it relates to how you would look at it, is you got to pick the right brand deal for the audience and what you think your audience will resonate with, will be valuable for them. So valuable for you, valuable for your career.
But what if, again, in starting out, right? This is for those who are starting out. What if you've only got one option?
That's the problem,
right?
Yeah.
And this is true of like what you're saying when you're starting out as being a comedian or being a videographer that's doing content for social media and you're getting brand deals. But it's also true of a band for the first time, or any music or recording engineer, right? You're not recording U2 every day, right? You're getting these higher profile gigs. You're not recording Taylor Swift until you've kind of made it, right? Like, so when you're starting out in the industry, you're not immediately getting the top acts. And that's not to say that the top acts wouldn't work with you. It's just you don't have the opportunity. There's a lot of people that are much higher in the queue that would get that. So if you're at the bottom of the thing, you go, well, I couldn't record that band because I don't think,
You might need to take it.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, this is another way of looking at it, which, again, I'm trying to, maybe it sounds like I'm walking a line here, but I'm trying to sort of share my internal struggles that I have all the time, right?
Of course.
Because like the way I look at producing, and this is maybe true mostly of music, but I suppose you could look at this as producing any content, is I go, okay, I want to leave the thing that I'm producing in a better place than it was when I got it. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a song, for example. If someone plays me a song, and let's say I don't love the song, my goal is always to produce it so that I would like it.
I see.
Okay, so if I can figure out how to make the song do the things that would make me as a listener go, I'd listen to that.
Right.
Then at least I have something to pull from it. So maybe I don't love the voice, maybe I don't love the something about it. Mm-hmm. But if I can figure out how to change enough about it to make me go, hey, I love this and this and this.
Right. And
now I like it.
And that's why people pay you, because your taste has been refined to be.
That's right. Exactly. Well, what I've learned, and again, this is just maybe a hopeful thing, but I've found that when I make changes in a song with a band, I've found that my taste, which is me just making it sound the way I would want to hear it, tends to be, and this is maybe off the mark here a bit, but tends to be in line with what the majority of people think. So I try to tailor the songs in a way where I would listen to it. So if I get an artist gives me a song that I don't love, rather than say, I don't think I can work on this, my goal is usually to go, how can I make this into a way where I listen to it? And I think if I can't, I think the honest truth is to scrap it, right? If it's like, hey, I don't have it. I don't know how to make this work. So either that's me saying I can't make this work, or it's me saying maybe another producer could make this work, right?
Right.
But like, you know, I won't say the name of the guy, but I worked with this legendary producer who was telling me a story about one of my favorite bands of all time. And he was working with the band, and he did a record that was absolutely phenomenal, which is, in my opinion, the greatest record that band has ever put out. And then in looking at the course of history and time, he didn't record the record after it, which technically flopped. And I remember talking to him and going, why didn't you record that record? It made no sense. You were flying high. Everything was great. You had the great record. It was looking like it would have been perfect. That record you did before was phenomenal. Why didn't you do this one? And he said to me, he goes, well, they gave me the demos for the songs that they were going to do for the next record. And I said, they're good, but there's a lot of things about them that I don't like. I'd like to change them. And they gave the same recordings to a different producer who said, I love it. Let's go. And they did it, right? And so, again, my taste is that the record that he did was phenomenal in the way it was done, and it's because he pushed them, and he's not just happy with just saying, here's a record that you're happy with, and is pushing the artist to do it. And the other record went out, and I mean, I don't know if the flopping thing is, even if you look at the sales, I don't think either of them did particularly well.
Interesting.
Like compared to their formative years of the recordings. But if you look at the records, it's kind of like, well, yeah, there's not as many hits on this one as there was on this one.
Right.
And all the production on this one is not as good as the production on this one. So to me, it's kind of like the artist was being lazy at that point and going, I don't want to do the work. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So as a producer, you're supposed to encourage that out of an artist.
Yeah.
Right?
You talked earlier, like, if you be a doctor, it takes a lot of work. I was thinking, it's like, yeah, it takes a lot of work and time in school. But there is a path that if you do these schools, you pass the tests, you are a doctor.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's nothing like that in this industry.
There isn't. That's a great point. That's a really good point. Yeah. So if you're
So that's why there's podcasts like this.
That's right. That's a good point. Right, because this gives people hope. Going,
Yeah.
okay, well, sorry, I'm not the only one in here, right?
Yeah. And even and we've all had this, we've all been doing this journey in this industry. You and I.
Yeah.
And we're still like midpoint, not even in our careers, I think, and like making money, making money off of it.
Yeah.
But like so many more big, huge goals. The biggest goal, like I want to make, I feel like my first goal is to like, and it's been forever, is to make a TV show. Like
Right.
be the creative juice behind a show that is mine or, co-created.
In that scenario, you're acting in it, or you just...
I don't care. I honestly, the thought is not. I don't have to be in it. That's most of the stuff I've put out there and tried to sell is stuff I'm not in.
Right. So that's putting yourself in a place where you are
producing.
the creative side.
Yeah, exactly. Which I've done. That's been my life. Like is creating videos and.
But you're
content.
also now you're the
I'm in
face
it
of
for my own stuff. Yeah, for a lot of my own stuff.
A lot of people probably don't know that you're doing comedy now.
Stand-up
you're
comedy,
doing
right.
stand-up comedy, and you're also doing content creation, and now you're this influencer type person,
yeah.
right?
Whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Influencer.
Well, the quotes
That's part of my stand-up is talking about it. I don't love that
course.
term.
Well, the quotes allow you to say whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah.
Just put the quotes up and say whatever the hell you want.
Professional content creator.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just such a new term. And it's like I would never describe myself as that. It's like I'm a video producer.
Well, I think with the term influencer, which by no means am I either.
Yeah.
Right. But to me, the influencer just means that what you do influences other people to do that same thing.
And it happens on my videos, like 100%.
Exactly. But that's what brand sponsorship is.
That's true.
Brand sponsorship is that brand. Like I know many people who are so easily influenced by watching TV, and then all of a sudden McDonald's commercial comes on, and you're like, let's go get a cheeseburger.
True, yeah.
Like that happens. So like, I saw pizza on this TV show. Now I want a pizza. Like,
That's true, yeah.
It happens. I'm not really like that, but I know a lot of people who are, right?
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're basically influencing other people to buy the thing that now is paying for your content that you're creating,
right?
Which ironically is actually pushing that content. So
exactly.
So there's
it's a beautiful cycle,
right?
Because 90% of my videos are just my own videos,
right?
Not sponsored,
right?
1 or 2 a month sponsored pays for my month,
totally.
Which is amazing. hopefully for everybody,
Right.
especially the people watching, getting entertained from my videos. We get to keep going,
Right, of course.
on the journey together.
And that's what the podcast really is. I mean, for those who are sort of still unsure what the hell we're talking about, which I could see that. Really, what it is this podcast is about the journey through the industry, trying to make it, but trying not to have to give up and get a real job. Because
Right.
what it is
It's
like we're working oftentimes for yourself, but even if you're working for a company or something that's either creating brand content, or even if you're a musician, you're working for the company of your band. It's a group of people that are working together, doing a bunch of things. Your job is to not have to go and get a real job so you can focus on doing this job.
Exactly.
Right? And it comes from many things. Like I tell my students this a lot. It comes from your overhead. If your overhead is low enough that you can afford to do these things, it gives you more time to create that content,
True,
right?
yeah.
But if you're also, in a position where you have a family, or you're trying to make it in a city, we happen to live in Toronto, where the rent is astronomical. So if you're trying to make it in a city here, you have to now, if you don't live here already, you have to live in the city. That's a huge overhead. Cost of doing business. We used to call it a convenience tax.
Yes. Convenience fee. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just, you pay that amount of money to live downtown so you can do the things that you have to do to live there.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the most important thing is to keep yourself so that you don't have this massive overhead so you can continue to create. But at the same time, I'm sure a lot of people like to do things. They like to go out and have dinners. They like to go to a hockey game or a baseball game. It's hard to do in this city, but past April,
There was
sure.
something you told me a while ago, because I play a lot of sports, right? And I like that's my exercise. I don't go to gyms. I hate going to gyms, but like I play soccer, I play hockey, I play table tennis, right? And I remember you telling me, like, man, you spend a lot of time. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like, you should be doing, like, why aren't you working on this something else? Like,
Right.
but that my whole life I have been at the side of my desk of my full-time jobs, which were in video,
Right.
but working for companies.
Right.
I was also doing my own videos
Right.
and my YouTubes and whatever. But I'd spend time going. But it was a very important part, and I still believe that, you need to get physical activity, and that helps your creative minds. It just, However, when the pandemic kind of hit, things stopped. I played a lot less sports. When I came back a little bit, then I got injured, so I stopped. And what happened was, Wednesday nights when I had played soccer or hockey, stopped, and I'm like, let me do stand up those nights. And that's when I had the time to add stand up.
You traded health for
pain, for
Much
being
more
laughed
pain.
at, but in the worst way possible.
Right.
For being actually no laughs, which was just the worst, but like the learning experience. So like that added a whole new level because I spent the time instead of going to play. It's just like you have to sacrifice, and and it's hard to do that, especially with families.
Well, you
and,
can't do everything. This is
the problem.
Like there's a term in the new Curb Your Enthusiasm. In the first scene of the new episode, this girl's walking down the thing to do on her phone, and she's signing autographs. She's got her dog. She's like, and Leon goes, she's DTM, doing too much. and I'm like, that is exactly what happens in the industry. Someone is like, I'm a PR person, I'm also a promoter, but I'm a label as well, and I happen to do tour management, and I manage artists, and I produce records as well.
Not all
it's
of it
like,
is going to be good.
You just can't do everything and be good at anything. It's just impossible. You probably are good at something,
Right.
but unfortunately you can't be only doing the one thing, or you can't be doing a plethora of things and then be able to sit and focus. It's just not possible.
It's not possible.
So like, even here, I mean, playing in a band, production, I teach on the side. Now I'm doing a podcast. It's probably not gonna be that great.
Well, you're lucky that I'm gonna be taking this edit like for video, and God knows when I'm gonna have time to do that.
Well, we'll see about that.
Right.
Why don't we talk a little bit about just where we are?
Yeah.
How we got here. So, for me personally, I actually never really did that day job route, and this is something
which
that
is amazing.
It is, but it's also it's been a longer journey because of that, right? Because I in school I started the recording studio, started working through working with indie bands and trying to take as many bigger breaks as you can, but just really focusing on honing the craft. In that first part of the curve, learning how much you didn't know, and going, oh my God, I got to relearn all this stuff, right? And then sort of fast forwarding now to always trying to stay as an independent person in the industry.
Yeah.
I never wanted to work under another producer. I never wanted to work at a studio. as much as I wanted to own a studio and like I do now and sort of run it as a commercial studio, I never wanted to work under someone at a commercial studio because I was not the type of person to be able to flourish in that.
Yeah.
So I tried to do it as best I could alone all the way through and just sort of make it happen for yourself. And I always thought that the term of make it happen for yourself was always really important. I don't know. I've always just tried to do it myself and keep it locked into being my own brand, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard because you have to sort of live behind that and make a reputation. And anytime that there's anything negative that happens, it does affect you in that way, right?
Yeah.
So I took on teaching as well to sort of
That's more
mitigate
recent of
that.
a thing.
That's a recent thing, but that's also because the school I work at, which I can plug, the Harris Institute in Toronto, is a fantastic institution, and it's actually run by and taught by active industry leaders. So this is an industry where, and again, not to slag on any other schools, but it is sort of, education's a great way to make money. Well, I've never been, or I was a has-been, and so I'm probably qualified to teach.
That's the
That's not the
that's the
type of-
standard like stereotype of
Sure.
like, what teachers.
But
are
that's the kind.
sometimes.
That's exactly what we don't have at Harris.
Interesting.
Because at Harris, it's
You
all
have
people.
you're somebody who has no time to teach.
Exactly.
And that's the
No time
teachers
to
they
teach.
all have.
Exactly. It is. It's literally every single person that's there has no time to be teaching. They have no business teaching at this school because they have no time.
Yeah,
But-
that's what you want.
Yeah, but and I'll tell you this as someone who just got through a whole whack of rescheduling things with them. Every teacher's doing that, and the student has to be okay with that, which is a great lesson for the industry anyway, because everything in the industry is the day before rescheduling and what's happening.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about the school is that everyone there is actively in the industry working right now on real projects with real talent in the entertainment industry.
Right.
Whether you're a manager, whether you're a tour manager, whether you're a marketing person, like a lot of my colleagues are people I work with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And these guys are all industry professionals. So I would rather learn from someone like that than from some guy who either was relevant in the early days of recording industry and now is teaching to
That's the video.
fulfill it.
Well, I remember like a few weeks ago, you just you're in here recording Alexis on Fire, then probably walked, then go the next day go teach the class. It's like you're
Well, what's crazy is that in that scenario, which was super cool, we worked with Alexis on Fire here, and in order to make that session work, I had to cancel a class.
Oh, really?
Right? Because they wanted to work. I usually teach Wednesdays. They work through the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday scenario, so I canceled the Wednesday.
Yeah.
Which everyone at the school was like,
oh, cool.
hell yeah.
Yeah,
That's great, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even mention the band at the time. I just said there's a session that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which is another great lesson. It's no band is more important than the other one. I mean, some projects excite you more, obviously, things that are higher profile, stuff that it's gonna be heard by people.
Yeah.
That's always way more exciting. But as far as the priority of what makes you cancel something versus the other one, it shouldn't be about the priority of, this band is so much better, so I'm
Right.
canceling it, right?
Right.
Like you shouldn't look at it that way, right?
Yeah.
It should always be that any project that's worth your time to take on should be at the same level and as high regard, right?
Exactly.
But with that mentality, I've produced a lot of records that are the best records no one will ever hear.
Yeah, that's the truth, man.
Right?
We've been making video. I've been making videos forever. Like some stuff I think is great. A lot of people have seen, and just nobody sees it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's part of the process of how to get better
is.
and how to get it to another level. Because maybe there's the one day that is a clip that you can send to somebody to get that next big, working with a big talent.
Well,
Because
anything's an opportunity, right? And I hate the term opportunist, but I do think that I look at any scenario as how can I turn this into a positive for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even like the other day, we were on the road and we were playing in Germany, and there was this the show that we were playing, which was poorly promoted on our side. Like there's no question that it was a last minute show. We didn't have the time and resources to promote it. We were already over there. We figured we'd play this show. And, we were all kind of like, that's too bad. And then this band was going to open for us, which we're like, that might be cool. Get a bit of press from them, too. Turned out that they had been playing a festival the week before, and they didn't have much audience coming either. So we were kind of like, that's too bad. And so instead of sort of making this like, this is a bad night, it's going to suck, I said, well, why don't I roll on, because I have the technology to roll as a recording engineer on the road with the band.
yeah.
So why don't I take the multi-track of the show this night and we'll just try to play really well and we'll make a great live record out of it, right?
Yeah.
Now I go back and I go, hey, record label, I'm sorry that we didn't have the best turnout at this show, even though it actually was all right.
Yeah.
So we didn't have an amazing turnout at this show, but look, we got a live record out of it.
Right.
That's an opportunity that was not there before. Now they can choose to go, wow, this is content. Even if we don't release it as a record, now it's like, hey, these audio snippets can go and promote the band on social media.
It's a mindset shift of how to look at things. And especially as me doing content creation, every opportunity, wherever I'm going, I'm like, how can I turn this into a piece of content
Exactly.
that might work and might entertain
Well,
people?
you do that all the time. Like I always feel like, you're always saying when you're in a studio and you're working on these things, you're like, why aren't you taking content?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing things? And I'm just way too. There's no
you have
world.
no time. You have no time.
It's not even about time. It's like I don't have the hands to do it.
No, you don't. No.
I'm working here, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you also need to be filming this.
Right. No, it's impossible. You need
How
to
would you
hire
do
a
it?
crew.
You would have to spend the money to do that.
To
In
hire
which
a
case,
social
content would be
team.
great.
Yeah.
But whenever you're anywhere, you're just like, oh, this is funny. I'll film it.
My mind turns it into the story of this moment.
Right.
That's how that's my career.
Well, that's true too. When we first started working together, which is a good tidbit to talk about as well, we worked for the CFL, right?
Right. Well,
you were working for the CFL.
Well, when we worked together, like I guess paid.
Well, sure, but working in a field that wasn't again for ourselves.
True.
Not that I think the Wii Show was anything to do with me.
No,
if
no,
anyone
no.
sees it, I'd love for them to not think that.
Yeah, just forget
But
it,
at
you
the
suck.
same time, that was something that was, regardless of the pay, was something that was a passion project.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Okay.
And but it was very informative to understanding a
great.
lot of stuff.
But whereas that was, I guess the distinction here is that whereas that was a passion project, this first time we really worked together, quote unquote, to create content for something that wasn't a passion project. Because I didn't really know much about the CFL anyway.
Yeah, Canadian Football League for those.
Canadian Football League, sure.
Yeah.
And so we worked when we followed this profile character around, who was a prospect that was hoping to get into the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this film happen. The guy's like sitting with his grandma. He's like, "So are we gonna do some stuff today?" Like no content at all, nothing,
Right.
not one story.
Well, and I was like, "Wow,
yeah, I know."
This is fantastic.
And I'm watching this. I'm going, "Oh God, we're gonna get fired. There's no chance." And you pulled the story out of your ass. I don't know where it came from. And I remember watching it. I'm like, I need some tissues. I'm gonna cry at this thing.
I was there. This was not what happened.
Yeah, this is not at all how this went. So so it's storytelling, right?
It's all
for you. It's storytelling, and for me, it's about taste.
Yeah.
So you're a storyteller.
I mean, taste as well. But
here's the biggest thing that I hate about the industry but love is that like we're basically making art all the time, which is what we're doing. We're trying to monetize art, and I don't think that art should be in that world. You shouldn't be creating art, forcing yourself to create art so that you can make money off of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think that you have to, and it's a great way to make money off of the constructs of a
society,
of a capitalist society where you have to make money.
Yeah. You leave behind what you might
passion.
love.
Yeah. Exactly. You do. You leave behind what you might love, and you're not necessarily doing what your calling in life was. So like it's the same as when I talked about nurturing potential, where you're like, oh, okay, I have to follow this through. But at a certain point, you have to get a real job.
Right.
Right. So you could say, oh, you're a great flute player. Great. Well, eventually you're going to have to get a real job.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Unless you're the best somehow.
Yeah.
Incredible, the best
Exactly.
flute player in the world.
Yeah. Well, that's,
Or like
that's
you
not
can
even
be
true either.
part of
Just
the-
be good enough to carve yourself. Like this is the thing.
Yes.
It's like you're at a crossroads with that. So you're passionate about something. You're good at it. Then you hit a point where you have to decide: am I going to get a real job? Or am I going to follow this passion into a career?
Yeah.
And if you choose the latter, you have to make it happen for yourself.
Yes.
That's the crazy thing. There is no path.
Yeah.
Right.
So I remember you had your studio in your parents' basement.
Yeah, that's how it started.
That was where it is. We met at university.
Yeah. And we did the post for a lot of the Wii Show stuff in my parents' basement. And we shot even some of the skits down there too.
Skits. We recorded the theme song.
Yeah,
down
that's
there.
right. That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
That was 2007, 2008.
Yeah,
2008.
Yeah.
So.
And that was right when I was sort of learning how to
So
produce
how long ago?
anyway.
What's the math on that?
Oh God, so that's the thing. Entertainment industry, creatives, we don't know math.
Yeah,
we
we're
don't do
just
math
the
so
worst.
good.
We're the worst business accountants you've ever. I guess that is another problem of going in on it my own now, being full time. It's like that's the part I hate, and I've had
awful.
to take on like the business part of it.
Awful.
It's
Awful.
awful.
I
It's
mean,
the
I
worst.
don't. I'm fortunate. My old man's have been helping me with that for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's able to kind of keep me on the rails.
Yeah, that is a hard.
I have no
thing.
idea.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I go, how are you supposed to know?
I don't know.
If you don't go to business school and then you start a business.
Yeah.
Great.
That's true.
Good thinking,
Yeah. Otherwise, should I have gone to business school?
Yeah.
No.
Then what?
Then what? I wouldn't be making videos.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I had the studio in my parents' basement. We worked together there at that point, and then we got an opportunity with me and my partners at the time. We had an opportunity to take the studio to a place where it was an actual commercial facility. We were all able to put our studio into a proper place that wasn't just in my parents' house.
Yeah.
They were elated.
Chesswood.
Yeah, Chesswood. Yeah, they were elated to go up there.
Yeah.
To not have me in the basement anymore.
Right.
They used to not be able to walk around because of the ceiling. When we were in the space, we did a lot of records for independent bands that, I'm sorry if you're listening, but had no business being in a studio. A lot of
You had no business.
no the bands. A lot of the bands that we're working with at that point had no business being in there. The best part of doing that was in fixing bad bands.
You learned
how to make stuff happen.
I mean, that's every
right?
video, same thing.
You shoot a bad video and you learn
try
how
to fix it in editing.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's the same thing. So we shot all this terrible content as songs, and then we had to figure out how to sell it, right? And we realized that a lot of the time, if we recorded something not good, and we couldn't sell the post part of it, which was where we would actually make money.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we would, a lot of the time, to make clients happen as lead generation, you would sponsor Battle of the Bands things, or you would sponsor places.
You would record them, and then you'd have to pay to do the post mixing on it.
Yeah, so you would attempt to record bands for free, with the idea of working with them and getting experience doing that, and then if it was good, then you would sell them on doing a record or more songs or whatever, right?
Yes.
And so it was all about it was kind of like the crack dealer approach, where you go, here, try some if it's good, and it's good, But which is still relevant to the industry today. It's still a way to go, right?
Yeah.
You show someone what they're missing, and then they take it, right? So then you record it and you make it good. And then you move on. But now
doing it, I think the key is you need to do it to learn how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't study it as much as you can. You need to do it.
The schools are great, I will say. Like, to go to school.
But it's also like the networking and like you learn some of the mistakes or the things that it definitely helps. But if you're not going to do it, you're just going to study it.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Well,
can't do it.
There's a lot of things when we went to school where I don't remember any of them. Like, for example, lighting, I'll say, we had to take the video side as well. And if you're an audio, you still take the video side.
Yeah.
And we took the one with lighting.
Yeah.
And I remember taking it at the time and being like, who cares about lighting?
Right.
I don't know how great this is lit right now.
It's not good.
I would really love to know a lot about it. That's something that I don't know about.
Yeah, I'm much less, years ago I stopped like worrying too much about being the cameras and gear and like lighting, because I went the kind of creator, like the producer, the editor, the director, and less about worrying about that stuff. So like my tech stuff isn't as good, but like I can Premiere editing, I know my stuff. Of
course,
cameras and gear less so, but that's why now I can hire friends or whoever who know that stuff way better, and can just do it at the level my mind is thinking.
Sure. Well, that's the way to do it too. And I talk about this in the production class in my school. I always say that you're expert. You focus on your strengths. So if you're really strong at, let's say, arranging a song, okay, which is, I believe, my strength, is in someone having written a song and me going, here's how you can make it better. Switch this for this, and let's work on this piece and do this. That's my strength. My strength is much less, here's a great hook for your chorus, let's work it into the song. While I do that, that's not my main thing. I usually will say, here's your song as it is. Let me show you how to make it better. That's my favorite. I love that. When a band has written something great and I make it even greater. Yeah, that's what I love.
Because, it fuels.
Yeah.
When you hear something like, oh, wow, what if you try it? Like,
exactly.
That fuels, like, creativity.
And you get it from both sides.
So sometimes I have people edit my content sometimes just to keep up. And when somebody brings me back, like, a really good, like, interesting, I'm like, it feels so much more on top of it, because, like, oh, wow, I can see where this could go now.
Yeah. Well, that's it. But my point was more that you play to your strength. So in your case, if your strength is not in the tech side of it, what's the difference, right? Like in my world, if you're not good at, say, synth arrangements, for example, then hire that person to be good at that. If you're not good at getting drum sounds, hire a drum tech
you should probably, I guess, starting out, you figure it all out.
Well, sure, you learn what your strengths
and then
are.
you know, and then because as you said, you learn what you don't know.
That's right.
And you have to either decide, am I going to figure that out, or am I going to
you
figure enough just to be, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
But not necessarily be great.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
And then you get to a point where you can hire the greats.
Exactly, and that's where you're at. You want to go, okay, well, then my strength as a producer is to advise the band that they need this.
Creatively,
right?
yeah.
Like if you know, I play guitar for a lot of the projects I work on, but I'm not the perfect guitar player for every genre.
Right.
So I might suggest for an artist, you know, you should hire this person to play for that. That's not me saying I'm not good enough to do it. It's me saying my strength isn't in this.
Yeah.
And even if I'm the producer and I'm supposed to be playing in the thing, I don't love being the guy playing while also producing. As much as that is fun, there's a whole other world that you're missing by doing that, right? So you play to your strengths. So at the studio, you know, where we are right now, it's like, okay, you kind of have to keep up with technology and make sure that you're relevant. But at the same time, is that the only way to be successful in the industry? No. When I switched my business and focus over to being the producer, as much as I had this gear already and it was great, the gear actually was not relevant anymore.
Right.
The gear had nothing to do with it. It was can you get from A to Z, Z being the final product, and have it be great.
Yeah.
So if you know how to use the gear you have, that's almost better than trying to find and get the newest, greatest, best gear.
Right, because you can make it what it needs to be
Yeah.
with any gear. Of
Like
course.
the sad thing is, you know, do you need a large commercial studio anymore to do records? You don't.
You don't. The same thing that people will be like, I don't have a good camera, I'm not going to record.
Yeah,
this
right.
thing. I need this camera. I need this. You got it fucking right here, a 4K camera on your phone.
That's right.
And like, even as a professional, I was vlogging for YouTube with my phone for like a year. And it was only at a point where I'm like, okay, maybe I can. And then basically everything shifted. I stopped doing vlogs. That turned into other stuff, and I got a better camera just because of necessity. I didn't first go out and get a fantastic camera. That the gear didn't stop me from doing the creative, the fun thing that I was trying to do. Right. Don't let the hurdles. Like a lot of people, like I feel like
they let it stop you.
They let them, like they talk themselves out of it because of, I need the camera. I'm never, when I get the money to get the camera. It's like, no, if you.
That's right. But then the other is true too. Like I've been a victim of this, where you go, well, you know what? I just need to have a great console, and I'll be able to make great mixes.
Right.
That's not true at all.
No.
You get this great gear, and it still sucks, and you
Yes.
go, oh wow, okay, I guess I really am bad then.
Yeah. It's out of, I think, I always say, like, do the thing, the stuff that you need, the stuff you'll find what you might need once you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Don't, like, put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, right.
Like, I think a lot of people do that because it's easy.
Sure, but it
To be
depends.
like, to think, but like, okay, well, I'm going to need all this gear and all these things. Like, no, think of the idea. Like for this podcast, we don't need to have these mics.
No.
We don't need these 3 cameras. We don't need this fucking lights. We could have had this.
In the middle of this with the room,
And then we could have done it.
Yeah.
Right? But because we just, you and I, we've had it all. This is kind of easy-ish for us.
Yeah.
Because it's all here already.
Yeah.
But nobody needs this.
No.
You can just start it.
Yeah.
So I can put it out there.
Yeah. It's content.
But I think people would be like looking at this or looking at anything. They're like, well, I can't do a podcast because I don't have these mics, so I don't have a nice camera.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Record the thing, then you'll know more about that thing you're making. And then the next time you'll do it again, you'll get better and better. Then you'll add a camera.
Exactly.
Or add a second camera, or a better camera, because of you're doing something that actually is working because you've tried it.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people, I think that was my biggest advice for a lot of people, especially when I, in stand-up and like stuff, people came in, I had a following already that wasn't stand-up necessarily, but I added it. It was comedy-ish. You know, everything I do is kind of comedy-based. And a lot of people asking me, they started to understand, like, oh, this guy does really good videos, and like asked me, like, oh, what gear with this? I'm like, well, so how many videos have you posted in the last month? They're like, I don't know, 1. I'm like,
right.
okay, well, that's a problem. Like, why? Oh, well, I don't have a thing. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
you don't need those things. Just the first thing you do is like be consistent in posting anything, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, right.
And then you'll learn, and then you'll know what you might or might not need. Don't try to think what you need for something you don't even know what you're doing.
True. Well, that's a good point. There's a lot to unpack there, though. Like the first rebuttal of that is just if you're a business where your business is based on gear.
Oh, yeah.
This goes out the window.
Well, your business isn't that. Most creatives aren't that.
Of course, but if let's say you're running a video studio, or you're trying to get clients. Like if you're trying to compete,
we're talking to people who are trying to start something that they haven't really done yet.
Well, I think we're talking to anyone who's in the industry who's trying to figure out
what the next step
how
is?
not to give up. We're giving hope to people who are in it, maybe not getting that much work right now.
Right.
How do we get more work? And it's not even how do we get more work that we're answering. We're more saying, well, hey, we're all there. Every one of us is there, right?
I think my advice was for
creatives, of course.
Creatives who are trying stuff or like want to do something, and they're like hindered by their own thought of what they might need technically.
Sure, to do it, yeah, just create it and go. I mean, that's what Dave Grohl always said about like being in a band. He's like, you don't need all the great gear or be any good. Just get a bunch of guys that you like in a room together and just make noise and suck.
Yeah.
Like that's what he says. Just be bad, and eventually you'll be bad enough with your friends that you get something cool happen, and you're there.
It's true.
So like that's good advice. But like if you're trying to start a studio, for example, like there is some merit in having X level of gear because right. And if you're trying to be a videographer and get work at a certain level, you do need you need a red or you need a.
But when you started, when you first did your first ever recording,
right?
It wasn't.
No, of course not.
Right?
Of course.
You didn't say I need to get a console and then I can record.
Of course, that's right.
what I mean.
Right, of course, and that's right. That's exactly what it is. So yeah, you say I'm passionate to do it. I'm going to just do it.
Just do it.
And then you do something. Yeah, but then it will likely suck though. That's the caveat, right?
That's of course.
Right. But if you are at a level where you're sort of you're already
you'll
there.
learn if you're passionate enough to like see it through and actually keep doing it.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah, that's what it is.
Right.
And that's the show. That's what it is. But I think the other thing is that you mentioned, which is good, is that. How many videos did you post? So I didn't post anything yet because I don't have the gear, but I posted 100 videos and look what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. There is also that other side of it where you get, people sometimes you'll lose more than you'd gain with a bad thing.
You and I, we argue about this
We
a
do
lot.
about that. But sometimes if you have something that's not great and looks weird or sounds weird, that can hurt you because a lot of the time you really only have one chance at impressing someone. So that whole elevator pitch thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you let's say music. This is why I know it from music. But if you happen, let's say you've got a song and you're super stoked on the song you've got, and you go to a record label and say, I would like to be signed to your record label, please.
Yeah.
And which sometimes happens, right? But you might go to one of the guys and go, can I get a meeting with you?
Yes.
Can you look at what I have?
Yes.
That's the only time that'll happen.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So if you go into this
prep.
and you go, well, sure, but that might be your prep. You might have done this recording and go, here's what I've got, right?
Yeah.
And then you go into that record label and the guy goes, it's not that great. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I can't help you, right? And then next week you do something better and you go back to them. They're not going to meet with you again.
Sure,
That's it.
Sure.
They go, I already know this. There's no point of that meeting.
Right.
So in that world, not to say you have to wait until your content is perfect, but in that world, you have to understand that you really do only get one chance at these things.
I think, but you're not going to get that opportunity if you didn't start somewhere.
Of course, but I think that the key is understanding that if you just post things out there to an audience that is critically judging you, that there is negative to be gained from that. If you're posting to the world, and it's like, oh, this is viral for many reasons. This goes viral because I would like laughing at this guy, or I think that person's attractive, or whatever the reason is. That's okay to post content like that. But if you're trying to further your career with content that's not 100% perfect, that is sometimes trouble and tricky.
I don't fully agree, but
okay, well, that's fair.
I don't fully agree. I think it's got to be to your taste.
Sure.
Your own personal taste of what you think it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
But don't you think that if you posted a video where you're doing something stupid?
Yeah.
Let's say
I just wouldn't post that.
Okay, but no, but let's say that you knew you could get a viral hit by posting you getting hit in the nuts by a football.
Yeah. Well, I've made that video.
I know you have. That's what I'm saying. But
I thought it was funny.
It was funny. But don't you think that doing that as let's say I was your first kick or your word didn't really happen, that was what you got viral for, I think that wouldn't be
I don't know.
easy to continue on with.
Well, hopefully you're
that
pivot.
Football guy. Well, you'd hope you'd pivot, but maybe you don't, and maybe that's so now all of a sudden you're this is what you're known for, right?
I think there's a
medium for sure.
For of that. I think the general idea is do the thing, and then you'll learn from it.
Totally, and that's it. That's right.
And
but learning from it publicly is not as good, though.
I mean, you got to have thick skin.
Like I know some.
What I think is you got to take some swings. If you don't take
Sure,
swings,
of
you're not
course.
going to hit.
Of course, Wayne Gretzky over here.
Yeah.
100% of the shots you don't take, you don't get it.
So
right?
in the same breath, this is especially for social media posting, you need to post.
Of course,
You need to make a
100%.
thing. Don't worry about too much overthinking it.
We gotta
Okay,
go.
we'll wrap it up.
Oh, I gotta go. We gotta go.
Oh,
Holy
yeah.
shit.
Okay, we'll wrap it up. Okay, here we go.
I'll wrap it up by saying just, the journey is part of the fun. Right?
It is.
Right? As part of loving you because you love what you're doing. You wouldn't do this if,
Of course.
as we said. You wouldn't do it unless you loved it. And go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say the way that you have to look at it is it like it's not the destination, really.
No, because to be honest, the destination, I'm still in the same building because I recorded my first, when I was in a band when I was 16, I recorded my first song in this building.
Really?
Yeah, downstairs, I don't think this thing's there anymore.
Yeah, probably not.
On the analog tape thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it had digital, but
Same building.
same building. But I'm still here now.
Now you're 3 floors up.
So it's not the destination.
That's right. It's literally the same place.
Literally, I'm in the same
Same
spot.
place. Same exact place.
Different scenario, but same space.
Yeah.
Upstairs now we're in this, it's a nicer, but like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I've been in this building twice for studios.
right.
We had another studio here too. And to me, it's just not the destination, but the journey. And you got to glorify it along the way. You have to take advantage of all the wins.
Little
right?
wins, the small wins.
The other day we put a song out and we got on 2 major playlists for the song.
Yeah.
And it started doing incredible streaming. And, the critique from the record label was, it's not the first song on that playlist, it's the 20th song on that playlist.
Oh,
so I
okay.
wish we'd been. I'm like, can we just be
Joe,
happy about the fact
even
that we got on it?
Yeah, yeah.
There's only 50 songs on here. Sure, we're 20th, but we're not 50th.
Yeah, and
we're
we're
not on it.
Yeah, we're not on it. Yeah,
Right?
that's-
Like to me, like you got to take the wins when they come in because there's not only wins, that's for sure.
Yeah, mostly not wins.
And another great thing to wrap it up is, let's sort of agree to not let social media do a negative impact on our hope. Because a lot of the time you look at other people and you go, wow, they're really killing it.
Right. But really the reality is they're probably worse off actually.
What I've found is when I'm posting, it's usually because I'm not that busy.
Right.
I'm posting to get more work, or
True,
I'm posting because I have time to post.
True.
When I'm busy,
They
I don't
post
have
a
time
damn
to post.
thing. It's true. And it depends. Unless your job, like mine, is to be posting every day.
sure, yeah.
Sometimes I didn't post today actually because I was just too busy. Like I couldn't.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff coming. Like I'm working on that I need to see through.
Yeah.
And I don't need to post today.
I like a nice story because it kind of tells people, hey, you're here, and if you fuck it up, it's okay because it's gone.
Yeah, we did the story. Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
But I like a story because you go, hey, look, here I am doing a thing.
Yeah.
But then if it's not that impressive, it goes away.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not there.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching. Whatever camera's available. Thank you
Yes.
for watching.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching wherever you are.
Yes.
Follow Ross.
RHC Music TO and RH Citrullo is my personal one.
There you go. And I'm Joseph_video on Instagram, Joseph DeBenedictis on TikTok, Joseph D, YouTube,
That's right.
all the places. And
Join us next time. We're gonna have some more great conversations, and eventually we're gonna pull in some guests that are gonna really make you wanna listen to the stories.
Yeah, I'm excited. I
Me
can't
too.
wait.
Excellent.
Well done, sir.
Thank you. Very good. Bye bye.